Hello, welcome to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading 1 Samuel 27. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me, to seek me any more in any coast of Israel, so shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maoch, king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites and the Gezrites and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep, and the oxen, and the asses, and the camels, and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner, all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. In the previous chapter, 1 Samuel 26, Saul pursues David after finding his location. David and an assistant take Saul's weapon and water bottle as he slept, confronting Saul as he woke up. David makes it clear that again he could have harmed Saul but chose not to. Saul agrees again to stop trying to kill David. 1 Samuel 27, the current chapter that we're on, David makes an agreement to live in the Philistine territory after concluding that Saul will never stop trying to kill him. David decimates neighboring populations but is not honest with King Achish. The king believes David is attacking Israelite territories, indebting himself to Achish. Summarizing 1 Samuel 27 in a bit more detail. So, Gath is a Philistine territory. David plans to live among the Philistines because he's just accepted that Saul is not going to stop trying to kill him. So in verse 2, he goes to the territory Gath with 600 men. So 1 Samuel chapter 21, David fled from Saul to the temple to see Ahimelech the priest. In this chapter, he's dead because he's one of the men that Saul ordered to be killed after he found out he helped David. But when we go here, King Achish of Gath, this is the second place that David went to in 1 Samuel chapter 21. So he must have sensed that there was some sort of safety there or some sort of good rapport, but we have seen that David earned the respect of the Philistines as he was acting out the duties of his leadership role that Saul gave him. So he must have had some sort of good rapport. When he decides that Saul is not going to stop trying to kill him, he goes back to this king. He brings his two wives, and it says here, word reached Saul that David fled, so he stopped hunting for him, which in the previous chapter, Saul already said he's going to stop trying to kill David, but that doesn't mean anything because he's already said that before too. But this is just saying, like, when it was told that David fled, he no longer searched. So it's kind of worded as if he was still going to try to hunt David again. So David goes to this Philistine king and asks him for help, and the king gives him an entire town for him and his men. They live there for 1 year, 4 months, and it says that David and his men spent their time raiding these groups of people. It says that he didn't leave one person alive in the villages that he attacked. When we consider what's going on with David, King Saul was his employer, his father in law, and his landlord. Before he defeated Goliath and was able to live in the kingdom with Saul, he was kind of poor. So, now that Saul is jealous of him and ran him out of town, he doesn't have his own income. As we see, he keeps fleeing to different places. He went to a cave where these men who are also in debt and unhappy with Saul's leadership, they were in the cave with him. So we also see that when he asked Nabal for help, asked Nabal if he could give some food. So it doesn't seem like David has a lot of supplies. He's in an enemy territory. The Philistines have been fighting with Israel since the beginning of the book of First Samuel. Actually, before that, because that was the Philistines captured Samson. Yeah, here, Judges chapter 16. Samson went to Philistine. As he has a problem with the Philistine women. Okay, now that. So he was in their temple. So since the book of Judges, probably before that, this has been they've been the enemy of the Israelites. So the fact that David is able to find favor with his enemies and no favor, no support among his own, actually, when he asked God, there was a group of people that he intervened on behalf of. And God told David, you need to leave because these people are going to betray you and give your location to Saul. The Ziphites gave his location to Saul. So he can't find that safety with his own people. So he's going to the enemy who is giving him favor. Just because they've given him favor, though, doesn't mean they're going to give him sustenance and materials to live, because he is an Israelite who is a long-standing enemy of the Philistines. Also, David did kill Goliath, and Goliath was a accomplished veteran of war. So just to consider, David was not didn't again, David didn't have employment. So just like we saw with Moses, just like we saw with Abraham, even as we saw with Samson, I mean these people didn't have jobs. Sarah didn't have a job. And so when we're looking at this, comparing it to someone like Hagar, who was a handmaiden, she had a specific role. We look at Aaron, he had a uniform, he had specific duties, he got paid for his work. Hagar got paid too, but she gets paid in housing, and it's different. She's more like a slave. So it isn't that it isn't that I don't I understand in the society you have to work. I understand. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is the way that work is today, I don't believe that's what God intended, which is why these pastors don't work traditional jobs. They don't have to have a manager over them. They get no performance evaluation. They don't have to clock in at a certain time. Nobody gets to review their performance. No Yelp review. No dissatisfied customers. Okay. Don't even always have to have a scripture for you to tell you to do something. They can just tell you God told them. How will anyone know? And I'm not trying to be facetious. But if you ever find that you are a person that, because I've gone through job insecurity, I've gone through losing a job because of at will employment, unclear reasons why I'm being let go. I've had that happen to me before. I've shared it with the church before, and I've heard it again in a sermon in an unpleasant way. So, just anybody who's listening, if that's something that you've dealt with, just understand these are people in the Bible that don't have jobs that were still able to be used by God. And God didn't make them have a job to be used. Sarah got money for her beauty. Abraham benefited off of her money, and so did Lot. Lot didn't have a job either. Now we're seeing David. David doesn't have a job. So what he does, he's going around killing people and taking their stuff because he doesn't have an income. So it isn't something, I'm not trying to advocate for, I'm not one of these illogical people that believe you can just live and not work. Yes, I understand you have to work. But if there is a point where maybe you've gone a few months or something, find solace in the Bible. Find solace in looking at these other characters who also had to get run off their job. Because that's what's happening to David right now. He was employed, he did the best job he could do, and his employer is running him off, hunting him to try to kill him because he's jealous of the great job he's doing. Again, God anointed Saul to be in that position of leadership, and he's acting against what God gave him that authority to do. God didn't strike Saul down because, just like Moses, when these leaders act outside of what God wants, God doesn't strike them down. So now that David is living in this enemy territory, they're of course not going to make sure he has sustenance. So he goes and he raids these people, and the king will ask him, well, where did you raid today? Because again, he understands you can live here, but we're not going to help you exist. So David would always reply, insinuating that he is doing this to other Israelite territories. And verse 9, David didn't leave anyone alive, so no one could tell on him. So that's also repeated. Verse 9 is also repeated again in verse 11. No one was left to tell Gath what happened. So this is how he existed as he was living on this territory. Ashish believed David that he was terrorizing these other Israelite peoples, and he thought, great, now David's indebting himself to me. Now he'll have to serve me forever. He's running for safety because he's had an attempt on his life just because he's doing a really good job. He finds solace with the enemy who is happy that he's put himself in a position to be indebted to him forever. That is tough. I've had it tough, but I've not had it that tough. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I love you. I honestly do. I love you. I love you. I want you to have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. I want you to find solace in the Bible. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you decide to like, comment, and subscribe. I do feel like I still need help with picking this apart, and I would welcome any observations that I might have skipped over. Have a wonderful day.